Today's fish has a superpower, maybe two superpowers. I'm Dan, your friendly fishmonger here at dansfish.com, and today we're going to talk about Ctenopoma and Sorgii, the Ornate Ctenopoma, and see if it's the right fish for your aquarium. And we're going to do that ranking them according to our 5 categories: appearance, behavior, ease of feeding, ease of care, and citizenship in a community aquarium. But before we get into that, if you wouldn't mind taking a moment to like and subscribe, your help would be appreciated. Before we talk about it in your aquarium, I want to talk about its superpower. As we talked about with the rummy-nosed tetras, there's a big problem a lot of fish have. They live in the tropics, and that is during the wet season, their habitat expands because the rivers flood, but in the dry season, all that disappears, and millions of fish don't make it back to the main river channel. They're stuck in these little temporary bodies of water. And the problem in those temporary bodies of water is they get hot and they're depleted of oxygen. So the fish that end up stuck in these little pools of water, they suffocate. But the Ornate Ctenopoma has solved this problem. It has developed something called the suprabronchial organ. Sometimes in the aquarium hobby, we call it the labyrinth organ, which basically acts like a lung. So they have gills and kind of a lung. When the water is nice and fresh and full of oxygen, they breathe with their gills. But in the dry season, if they get stuck in a temporary body of water and all the oxygen is depleted and all the fish around them are dying, they survive because they can breathe air just like you and me. They go up to the top, they take a gulp of atmospheric air, and they breathe it in their suprabronchial organ. So this fish can survive when many others cannot. So that is their first superpower. We'll tell you about the second superpower later. So in our first category, appearance, 5 out of 5. These are stunning. In fact, I would say of all the African anabantoids, fish with a labyrinth organ, these are the prettiest. They're amazing. Red and black stripes, bright oranges on them, really neat looking fish. It doesn't get much better than that. These are stunning. And when they color up to spawn, they're 10 times that pretty. And they color up to spawn frequently. So let's talk about our next category, behavior. I'm going to give them a 4 out of 5. So there's lots of reports from hobbyists that these are shy fish, that you get them and they're reclusive. They hide in caves or they hide in plants and you don't see them much. Maybe, but that hasn't been my experience. Come here, I want to show you what I'm talking about. So here we have a tank of Ctenopoma and Sorgii, and as you can see, it's fairly bare. All we have in here is a box filter to help clarify the water and a little piece of wood that they can get under if they want. And look how they're out and about. These guys are not shy. Look at this, right here. They don't care. In fact, they're gonna get very excited to see me. Watch this. They're gonna jump for the food. They're gonna, whoop. Do you see them jumping? They'll like come out and try to get me. I don't see how you could say this is a shy fish. So keep them in numbers like this and they're going to be out and about. So as you can see in my experience, this is not a shy fish. This is an outgoing fish. These guys are up at the front begging for food. They're personable. They'll jump out. I lift up the lid. They'll like jump out of the water begging for food. They're so enthusiastic about it. If I put my hand in there, they'll nibble on it. This is a personable fish. I keep fish differently than the average hobbyist. I tend to have large numbers of fish in a tank. And when there's a lot of fish together of the same species, they look around and say, hey, looks like everyone's doing good. It doesn't look like there's a predator around. They all come out and you see them, you can interact with them. So if you have shy fish, one thing that you might be able to do to remedy that problem is just get more of them. Not only is this a outgoing, gregarious, beautiful fish, but it has interesting spawning behavior. And this is their second superpower. These practice parental care. Now, on the anabantoids, back in the day, the ancestral anabantoid, the common relative to all the bettas and gouramis and ctenopomas and Ctenopomas, did not practice parental care, we don't think. Their closest relatives, the Ctenopoma, do not. But the Ctenopomas do, and that's one reason they're in their own genus. They do this by building a bubble nest. So they will go and they'll blow a bunch of bubbles up into the plants. They all stick together, all these bubbles. They'll take the eggs and put them up in the bubbles and they'll protect them up there. So the eggs are in this confined area, which makes it easier for the parents to defend them. and they're in an oxygen-rich environment because they're up in a bunch of air bubbles. That makes it so they can develop really quickly, even if they're in water that doesn't have a really high oxygen content. The Ctenopomas don't practice parental care, the Microctenopomas do. The Microctenopoma have developed the same strategy in Africa as the bettas and gouramis did in Asia, but they did it completely independently. So there's something about having a suprabronchial organ, this kind of lung, this labyrinth organ that they use to breathe air, that lends itself to being a bubble nester. That strategy has appeared in several different instances among the anabantoids. As far as the category of ease of feeding, these get a 3 out of 5. And the reason is, it's rare to get them to eat dry prepared foods. You need to feed them frozen foods and live foods. You can transition them to dry prepared foods, flakes and pellets and such. These will eat dry foods. Now, it is hard to get them to eat dry foods sometimes. Sometimes they like frozen and live. But if you have a big group together, they kind of cue off each other, and it's much easier to train them to eat flake foods and pellets and that kind of thing. If you notice, though, they're not a super fast fish to the food. They're kind of grazing around. They'll pick it. They'll eat it. They're very polite. It's not like some fish that are just like, nom, 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 nom. These guys will pick one, they'll chew it, they'll swallow it, and then they'll gradually move over to the next one. So they're a fairly slow feeder. So because they prefer frozen and live foods, get a little ding on the ease of feeding. The other reason they get a little ding is because they're not a real fast swimmer. They're not super fast feeders, and so they can get out-competed at feeding time by more boisterous, rapidly swimming fish. So the next category we're gonna rate this fish is their ease of care, and I'm going to give them a 5 out of 5. I think these are a hardy fish. As long as they're, humanely sourced and treated well in the supply chain, I find them to be quite hardy. And I don't think there's anything difficult about setting up their aquarium properly for them. If you have a big group of them, even in a bear tank, I find them outgoing and personable. But put some caves in there, put some hides in there, maybe a dense planted corner. It's pretty easy to do though. Nothing that the average aquarist can't handle. The last category is how good of a citizen are they in a community aquarium? I think these are perfect citizens. They're friendly, they're peaceful, they're personable. They might nip a fish that has really long flowing fins or something like that, but almost every fish would do that. I don't think they're any more apt to do that than any other fish I can think of. So when you're deciding who their tank mate should be, they should be other fish that are kind of calm in demeanor, slow swimmers, peaceful, chill fish. If you do that, they'll get along famously, I think, with pretty much any tank mate. So in the final analysis, I give these amazing fish that have not one, but 2 superpowers, a 21 out of 25. I think they're incredible. This is one that I never get tired of watching. If you want to learn more about aquarium fish, we do a live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Wednesday at the Dance Fish YouTube channel. Feel free to join us. It wouldn't feel right to close this video without thanking our customers. Thank you, you guys are amazing. Thanks to everyone who's a member of the channel. Thanks for being a member of the Fishmonger crew. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Until then, have a good one. Bye-bye.